Chapter 20. Awakening. The encounter with Seven had left everyone on edge. The elevator that would lead us to the tunnels inhabited by the Sha-Brytol was only a few yards away, but we decided to take some time to catch our collective breath. A fated darkspawn. Sigrun cringed. That's not something I would have ever wished to imagine. We should be grateful that we're still alive to talk about it, Furin replied, as he continued to look around the area, paranoid that more darkspawn would come swooping from the shadows. True enough, Sigrun agreed, then bowed her head to me. Thank you for keeping us safe, Princess. I would have preferred that you had killed that monster here and now. Our lives would be a small price to pay to see it dead, but I am grateful to be alive all the same. If I were more confident in my abilities, I would have done just that, I admitted. I blame myself for not dedicating more time to mastering my stone manipulation. If I had, this wouldn't have been an issue, and Seven would not be free to hunt down the power of the old gods. Don't say such things, my lady, Furin said, as he placed his hands on my shoulders in a comforting gesture. You already do more for your people than anyone else. You cannot be blamed for being diligent enough. Who could have imagined the fates would allow a darkspawn of all things to have the knowledge of the fated? I smiled softly at Farron's encouraging words. Thank you, Farron. Your support is always a comfort. I will always be here to support you, Princess, he assured me. With his confidence, I turned to look at the elevator. This is where we need to go. This will take us further below than any dwarf has gone in ages. At the bottom, we'll find the Sha-Brytol. Beyond them, we'll find the Titan. We're ready when you are, Princess, Sigrun affirmed. We stepped onto the elevator to make our way down to the lower tunnels. The trip to the bottom took several minutes. It was a marvel to think that anything so thin and rigid could extend far without snapping, but this was the wonder of ancient dwarven stonework. Thousands of feet below deep roads, the darkness seemed to creep in. I could feel it enveloping me like an ominous blanket. I never thought I'd say this, Furin gasped, but I'm having trouble seeing very far ahead. Sigrun and the others nodded in agreement. It's like a new depth of darkness, Sigrun said with surprise. I looked around trying to figure out what they were talking about. Are you certain? I don't see any difference between this and the deep roads. Merida, Furin gasped, using my first name without a title in his shock. Your eyes are glowing. Are they? I asked curiously. I looked to the others for confirmation. Sigrun stepped forward, gawking at me. The blue is so vibrant now. It's like looking at raw lyrium glowing in the mines. I suppose that explains why I can see just as well here as I can anywhere else, I surmised. You can all see me though, right? Everyone nodded. All right, how far out can you see past me? About 10 yards, Furin answered. I nodded. That's not too bad. Just follow me then. Sigrun chuckled. So just do what we always do. I grinned back at her, a bit of mirth in my response. Isn't it nice having a plan that works in multiple situations? That got a chuckle from the group as we pushed forward. It wasn't long before we began to find our way into areas that were lined with lyrium. I stopped immediately when I noticed a row of Sha-Brytol aiming mechanized crossbows at us. I held a hand out to signal for the others to halt. I stared at the Sha-Brytol for several intense moments before one of them seemed to consider me closer, then spoke to one of the others. The other turned and called out behind them. A few moments later, a Sha-Brytol in armor that seemed more imposing than the others stepped forward. The crossbowman stepped aside to allow him to pass. The leader approached me slowly, as if he was trying to figure me out. I took the initiative and spoke to him in ancient Dwarven. I am Paragon Merida Orodum, Princess of the Dwarven city of Orzammar. We do not mean you or the Titan, you protect any harm. I simply wish to speak with the Titan. The leader froze in what I could only assume was surprise. The helmet that was fused to its skins didn't allow for me to see its face. It leaned in and pointed at me. You speak our language? How did you learn it? I motioned to my eyes. The Titans have touched me. I wield their powers and have seen the memories of our people. Those memories came with this language, but I've yet to speak with anyone else using it. I hope I'm not offending your ears with my first conversation. You speak it well, the leader said, his tone honest, as if you were born to it. You say you were touched by the Titans, and you have eyes similar to ours. But how can we know what you say is true? You may have simply learned of our traditions and practiced them in order to gain our confidence. Would a demonstration of the Titan's power be proof enough? I asked diplomatically. Show me, the leader insisted. I looked around the space we were in. Part of it had been dwarven hewn, while other parts were still natural cave formations. I waved my arms out in either direction, and the natural stone molded itself to match the lines of the dwarven stonework. The leader's body language showed that he was shocked. He took a step away from me, then dropped down to kneel. The other Sha-Brytol followed suit. You are truly touched by the Titans, he said, head bowed. It has been untold generations since the Titans have shared their gifts through any dwarf. As you are Titan-touched, we are obligated to assist you however we can. That lifted a weight off of my mind. I didn't want to have to fight my way through the Sha-Brytol just to commune with the Titan. Will you escort my people and I to the Titan's heart? I tried to keep my tone as respectful as possible. I wished to speak with it and understand its purpose by working through me. The leader raised his head and seemed to look past me at Feren, Sigrun, and the others. Our duty requires that we keep all those not touched by the Titans, or a part of the Sha-Brytol, away from the Titan. You may go, princess, but the others may not. That disappointed me, but I wanted to remain on good terms with these dwarves. They were far more dangerous than the group I'd brought with me. Faren and Sigrun might be their equal, but I doubt the others might be. Perhaps just my personal bodyguard, I suggested. I will not allow him to do anything to disrupt the Titan. He will simply stand by and ensure my safety. The others can wait at a point you deem close enough. The leader took some time to consider the proposal. None are supposed to be allowed to pass. But I will grant your request as a Titan touched. Your word that your bodyguard will not step out of line is enough assurance for me. I trust you will not make me regret my choice. I offered the leader a curtsy. I swear to you upon the stone itself, no harm will come to the Titan. I want it to remain safe, just as much as you do, for reasons you would not believe. That seemed to grab the leader's attention, but he simply stood and motioned for us to follow. Very well, princess. As the leader gathered up his men, I turned back to the others with a smile. That went well. They all seemed to be holding their collective breath and released it in relief. What did they say? Faren pressed. They'll lead us to the Titan, I explained. However, only Faren and I will be allowed to go to the Titan. The rest of you will have to wait at a point they determine. They will not harm you. Why will we need to wait while the two of you go on? Sigrun asked skeptically. They don't let anyone who isn't Sha-Brytol or Titan-touched see or interact with the Titan. I condensed the conversation I'd just had. They see me as Titan-touched, and have allowed one person to accompany me as a favor according to that status. If it keeps you safe and prevents us from having to contend with the Sha-Brytol, I see this as a good scenario, Faren approved. Better than having to fight them just to get to the Titan, Sigrun said. I don't particularly like being contained in an area with enemies around us, but if you're sure they won't attack us, I guess it's the best we can hope for. They're not our enemies, I quickly corrected her. The Sha-Brytol are still dwarves. They're also far more closely linked to our origins than we are. We can only take them at their word for now. They have no reason to betray us. Princess? The leader called to us. Shall we be off? I turned and nodded. Yes, I apologize, but I was translating your instructions to my guards. He simply nodded, then turned and started to lead us toward the Titan. Granted, I knew for a fact that we were already inside the Titan. The moment we stepped off the elevator, we were inside the Titan. However, I didn't know where the Sha-Brytol would consider too far for the others to venture. The leader didn't know I had this knowledge, so I was guessing that he was willing to allow the others to go far enough before reaching the open air. Sure enough, after some time, the leader stopped and pointed at the rest of the groups. Here is where your people must stop, princess. They can go no further. Collect your bodyguard, and we will continue. I turned and was about to translate his words, but Sigrun was already signaling to her men to rest. I'm willing to guess that's our cue to stay, Sigrun sighed as she prepped to rest. I'll try to return as soon as possible, I said apologetically. Return when you're ready, princess, Sigrun responded. Get all of the information you need from the Titan. The information you can get from a Titan is worth us waiting however long you need. Thank you for your patience, Sigrun. I bowed my head. Faren, let's go. Faren stepped forward. As you command, princess. Farron and I continued with the leader for a few more minutes, curving through the gradually widening tunnel before I could start to see light slipping in. We rounded a bend, and the cavern opened up into an entire world. The large cavern stopped, and in its place was a stone bridge that led to pillars so large that they held small villages worth of buildings around them, and so tall that there was cloud cover several hundred feet below us, and reached so high we couldn't see the top. Entire mountain ranges pierced the cloud cover and rose above us. Light as bright as the surface day illuminated the world's space. There were birds in the sky above us, suggesting this was home to an entirely unique ecosystem. Farron and I both stopped along the bridge to simply admire the sight. "That's amazing," Farron said with awe. "The game never did it justice," I whispered in amazement. "A Titan really is its own world." "Wait, we're inside the Titan already? I don't remember this in Origins," Farron said in surprise. I shook my head with a bright smile. This wasn't in Origins. It was in Inquisition. It was a DLC, one of my favorites in the entire series, really. I never thought I'd be able to get here safely. I'm so happy to be here right now. I was marveling at the sight when I felt something on my hand. I looked down and found that it was Farron's hand slipping into mine, his fingers intertwining between my own. I looked at him in surprise, but he simply stared out at the view. I didn't say anything. I simply smiled and enjoyed a few moments with him as we took in the sight. The leader cleared his throat after a bit to get our attention. "Shall we continue?" We pushed ourselves away from the side of the bridge and I bowed my head. "Apologies. The view simply took us off guard." The leader grunted. "I understand. It is something to behold. But our destination is down there." He pointed to a large platform below us that held a massive blue crystal. I'd been so captured by the view that I hadn't even noticed or looked for it. "That's the heart," I said with excitement. "It is," the leader confirmed. "If you are to commune with the Titan, that is where you will likely have your best chance." We continued our way for some time, going over different bridges and down several levels until we neared the platform where the Titan's heart rested. I could feel the energy coming off of the massive crystal, like the thrumming hum of the world in my soul. The leader stopped halfway across the bridge to the platform. "I shall remain here. I do not want to risk intervening in your communion. When you are ready to return to your friends, I will be here." I bowed my head. "Thank you. Wait, you haven't given me your name." "It's Croft," he said simply. "Thank you for showing us the way, Croft." I bowed my head once more. "I am happy to be of service to a Titan touched," Croft bowed in response. Farron and I continued across the bridge, and I felt something calling to me. My mind was being pulled toward the crystal, and I could tell I was going to lose my balance. "Farron," I called out dizzily. "Farron, catch me." Sure enough, Farron was already there and guiding me down to hold me in his arms. "Merida? Merida, what's wrong?" I blinked hard through the dizziness. "Nothing. My mind is being pulled to the Titan. Just hold me for now." Whatever Farron's response was, I wasn't privy to it. My eyes closed and my mind was whisked into the embrace of the Titan. I could feel the memories and thoughts of all the dwarves at the back of my mind, but this time they were held at bay. In their place was a presence so incomprehensibly large that I could not fathom it made itself known. "Merida!" Its voice made my psyche reel back defensively in response to its power and magnitude. "You have come, so quickly, so dutifully." "It's been almost 2 years," I tried to explain. "I should have come sooner." I felt the presence's mirth at my response. "Our children measure time in increments so short we cannot truly understand them. We called, and you answered. That is enough to know." "As you say," I could only accept its explanation. "I have come to answer your call." "You have need of us, child," it responded. "A need that is true and genuine. It is not simply a wanted connection like the Sha-Brytol. We have called you to explain this need. I would first like to thank you for helping me against the archdemon." I tried to supplicate myself before the presence, but I could only assume that my intent was enough since I wasn't currently using my body. "You led our children against the taint, against the infection," it responded. "You needed to prevail to keep our children safe. You were worthy of our blessing. You are worthy of the effort to communicate with. Still, I thank you, and I thank you more for the honor," I responded. "I seek your aid in the coming future. Fenharl has returned. He seeks to destroy the world as it stands now. I would ask for your aid against him." The presence was silent for what seemed like centuries. Fen'Harel, the Evanuris, they waged war against us when we molded the world. Too attached to their temporary crafts were they. Too beholden to their sedentary existence. They slew some of our kind. Mythowl did, right? I asked curiously. Not alone, never alone. Evanuris are potent together, never apart, it clarified. Mythowl's plans, Mythowl's designs. I had to assume that it was speaking from its own perspective. A single Evanuris was a dominating force if Flemeth and Salas were anything to go by. They had power enough to sunder the veil or destroy the world with their magic. If the Titan considered them a threat only when they combined their powers, then the depths of the Titan's abilities were astronomical. Mythal remains alive, I explained, but she no longer wishes harm to the world or to the Titans. She wishes to work with me to stop Fen'Harel. Cunning as Mythal, was the response. Assurances will be needed, and you, child, will need to grow in strength. Mythal has given me the soul of one of the Evanuris, and has returned a dwarf to me that also has the soul of one of the Evanuris bound to it. You speak of Sandal, the presence knew. He was to be our vessel, our avatar. The Evanuris bound itself to him too early, too young, before we could work through him. The thought that Sandal had been destined to become the avatar of the Titans astounded me. There had always been theories about who, or what, Sandal might be, but nothing like this had ever been considered. At least, not as far as I knew. If I required more strength, and you required an avatar, I began hesitantly, unsure of how this proposal might turn out. Then, may I suggest that you use me as your avatar? Grant me access to your power so that I can stand against the Evanuris in your stead. The presence went silent for some time again. You drove the infection away from us just now. I was going to say that it was a few hours ago, but I quickly remembered that it was speaking from a much different perspective of time. I did, I agreed. It is another threat I must contend with. It has gained sentience and wishes to envelope the world using the souls of the Evanuris. They will become a threat if they succeed. You did not eradicate them. The presence seemed disappointed with the fact that I had let Seven and the Architect go. I wanted to save my friends from harm, I explained. I understand a handful of dwarves do not seem like much, but it was worth it in my mind to keep them safe. This is the response of a mother, the presence said without any real judgment in its tone. You must pick your battles. You must guard the children. In this aspect, you have been acting in outstead. Your desire to protect our children is palpable. Your desire to see us saved from the Evanuris is paramount. Your suggestion to become our avatar is wise. Will you accept this burden? Yes, I confirmed emphatically. There was no joy in the answer, but there was a willing acceptance of whatever may come with the role. Whatever is needed, I will endure it to keep the dwarves and all of Thedaw safe. Then wake now, the presence commanded. You are now our avatar and the mother of dwarves. Wake and see to the preservation of your children. My eyes snapped open and I shot straight up. It took me several moments to realize where I was. I found myself in a nightgown, resting comfortably in my bed. Suddenly, Farine jumped up from a chair he was sitting in and hugged me tight. Merida, bless the stone. You're all right. He turned his head from me and shouted toward the door to my chambers. Mother, gather everyone. She's awake. There was a rush of excitement and shouting for several moments before Kayla, Palin, Treon, Father, and Rika rushed into my chambers and surrounded my bed. I looked at everyone's grateful expressions in confusion. They were crying and saying how happy they were to see me awake and well. Wait. I looked at Farron, pure confusion written over my features. How did we get home? We were with the Titan only a few moments ago. That was weeks ago, my lady, Farron answered. He was clearly exhausted. The bags around his eyes were deep, and his expression was labored with worry that was slowly beginning to fade. But his eyes looked like mine. They were the same lyrium blue that mine had turned when the Titans originally blessed me. When you collapsed, you began to scream, Farron slowly explained. I thought you were dying. Croft wasn't even sure what was happening. We didn't know what to do until the Titan spoke to us. It told us you would be growing in power, but that it would take time. So, I thought it best to bring you home. The memory seemed to haunt Farron as he recalled it. You screamed the entire way home. You've been screaming almost non-stop for weeks, Kala cried, as she held my hand and stroked it, trying to comfort me from a pain I didn't recall. We had no idea how you could continue so long without losing your voice. The screaming stopped last night, Father smiled and pat my leg. Oh, my girl, we were so afraid when the screaming stopped. We thought you died, Balin sniffed, trying to hold back his tears. But Trien said you were just resting now. I was on watch, Trien clarified. We've been taking shifts to sit with you since you returned. Well, all of us except Farron, who hasn't left your side for a moment. I looked at everyone and felt guilty for everything I'd put them through, unintentionally or not. I'm so sorry to have worried all of you. In truth, I didn't realize that was happening. When Farron caught me after I collapsed, I started speaking with the Titan. We had a short conversation, then it told me to wake up. So I did. A short conversation? Trien scoffed, remaining taciturn if not for his eyes glazing over with tears he was holding back. It's been weeks. Titans work at their own pace, it would seem, I could only say. I suddenly realized that I was ravenous. I'm guessing I'd only had water or some other drink since I'd been out and my stomach ached terribly. I'm sorry, I apologized, but I'm starving right now. Can we continue this over some food? That request got a laugh from Trien. Only you, sister, would ever go screaming for weeks on end before asking for food. Come, everyone, let's let her get dressed and we can share a meal together. Kayla agreed and began to shoo everyone out of the room. Once they'd all filed out, she shut the door and smiled wearily at me. Oh, Merida, you have no idea how happy we all are to see you recovered from your ordeal. I never meant to make everyone worried, I said bashfully as she helped me from my bed and began to choose an outfit for me. I wasn't going to tell everyone just yet, but I was seeing everything differently now. I could see the stone move even as it stood implacably still. I could see the imperfections in the stonework that no one else would ever notice. I could feel the footsteps in the floor, echoes of everyone's movements within hundreds of yards, and could track them accordingly. The stone around me was now an extension of myself, separate but entirely able to give me information I needed from it. I was beginning to understand what the Titan had meant. I was its avatar now. Even as Kala fussed over my outfit, I was actively molding the stone to correct the imperfections in the stonework. I was altering the room in subtle ways to make it even more stable. I extended my will and did the same for the rest of my home, and further out into the Diamond District. Even as I was experimenting with this new level of control, I somehow understood that this was merely my eyes fluttering open to the world around me. In terms of potential, I was still waking up to this new power. I had yet to lift my head, or even extend a finger. These were simply the first groggy motions of a sleeper finally waking.